Fundamentally Europe, except the peripheries such as Anglo-Saxon and Russian worlds, nowadays has two prospects of evolvement. The first one is ultra-liberal, where totalitarian tendencies would be intensified, freedom of speech would be suffocated, and the democracy of the majority would be eliminated in favor of the idea to transform the indigenous nation into some Egyptian race. The second one is nationalistic, that is to say, the inner explosion resulting from the anti-migrational discourse. Neither of these alternatives has credibility and rather creates problems which are impossible to be solved. The course of liberalism puts up a myth about the sacred significance of the individual, while the course of nationalism stands for the sacred meaning of nation. The Western civilization reached this diverge point after the defeat of the Christian idea, which happened because of the lack of the radical attitudes and hesitation in actions. And now, in technological epoch, this civilization cannot restrain minds without total enforcement. The roots of postmodernity should be searched in Puritans of the 17th century, who have been persecuted by the crown, left their motherland and settled down in Massachusetts, the place where the most severe transformations began, which consequently spread across all over the world like plague. Generally their views, except their strong faith in pursuing the God's will and keeping the commandments, didn't differ from modern liberals' views. Even the ghost of monopoly that have been driven out by Jesus Christ from the temple was not only returned, but also was glorified as something honorable. I am referring to religious sects with which the church having been fighting from the very beginning and which eventually have won. As is commonly known, Arianism lasted not very long. However, it managed to keep its origins and launched them in the Unitarianism community. The concept of the latter was that absolutely everyone would survive, and they also interpreted the scripture quite freely inside the boundaries of the formalistic common sense. Notwithstanding that there were few adherents of this sect, there were a lot of prominent figures among them who had influenced on history. They made a great contribution to form those values which now are presented as progressional. The final stage was the establishment of the Cross-Functional Association in 1961, which included representatives of all religious groups who abandoned fundamentalism and narrow-mindedness of the past. Simply said, this association accepted those who rejected traditionalism, but who admitted some kind of the integrated, generalized tradition. Thus, the enemy number one for them is political Muslims, but not millions of sinners inside the nation itself. You can become the member of this sect if you refuse your identity, changing it to any except Christian or Islamic. However, the true man of faith who follows Jesus Christ's or Muhammad's doctrine could never be the member of this sect. From this sect's point of view, you are allowed to acknowledge your views, but not to preach them, as contrary to the sect itself that can do it. For instance, a number of those who call themselves laical Christians and right-wingers consider homosexuality as the part of the European tradition. But if a sin is really the part of this tradition, what is particularly Christian in it? It is an ambiguous doublespeak which is made by the product of people's sovereignty. To be welcomed among them, among these sectarians, is really only a man who is set against the law of the Lord or the Sharia, inasmuch as he or she cannot live as his or her ancestors lived, and has to keep abreast with the times, that is to say, the sect's beliefs. Neo-pagans not only pose no hazard to the sect, but on the contrary, there are faithful friends and alliance partners who help to destroy monotheistic people by making a mockery on their ancestors and also clamoring against them. Here I mean actual grandfathers and forefathers, not some mythic progenitor. The renaissance of paganism can be seen all over the world, from Canada to Peru, from Alaska to Japan, from Sweden to the Republic of South Africa. They have the same ground. All of them are against ancestors, as if ancestors are something that should be condemned to oblivion. In communism it is called withering away of state, in liberalism the dominant of engrossing market. Even though Christianity and Islam proceed from different concepts of godness, they have the overall message: the imperfection and inferiority of a human being, who upon that has willpower and freedom of choice, who can improve himself or herself and become a better person by arriving at God. This is the impossible gulf between fundamentalism and this sect, which declares salvation for everyone, and even for those who don't make any effort for this salvation, but only resign themselves to irrational control, the control which is blind and acts as wind fluttering a fallen tree leaf from side to side.